Okay, everyone, we had just a couple more slides that I need you to get up before class tonight, which is virtual. So contact for gestalt. Um, the contact is about fully authentically connecting with life. This is the goal, right? To be in this contact. And the terminology is different. So just try to imagine like a zest for life, effectively interacting with nature, with other people without losing your individuality. So you're completely aware of self, you have self-awareness, you have energy, you're able to express oneself. And your goal as a therapist, if you're Gestalt, is to pay attention to the disruptions in the contact. What is not allowing the client to be in contact? What is blocking them from making effective contact with their field? And there are different kinds of boundary disturbances that are probably affecting that contact. And these are as follows: introjection, projection, retroflexion, deflection, and confluence. They're usually not inside the client's awareness and they can lead to dysfunctional behavior. As you can notice, this is Polster, Miriam, and Irv. Is it Irvin or Irv? Irving. Irving and Miriam, right? 1973. And you definitely need to know these and memorize these for your midterm exam, all the big terminology, just making sure that you understand which theory it goes in to and how it is different. You can see that some of these words look a little bit like Freud's defense mechanisms, but these are definitely not what these are. These are kinds of contact boundary disturbance. They're messing with the contact and they're outside of awareness. So let's talk about them, and I think they'll resonate with you a bit. Introjection, the tendency to uncritically accept others' beliefs and standards without assimilating them to make them congruent with who we are. So you're accepting others and just accepting that and taking it in for yourself. This happens to a lot of people that I come in contact with. Um, they don't know who they are, or they don't feel strong enough in who they are, or authentic enough to figure out who they are in their own view. Um, and that is a developmental process too. I'd say over the lifetime, that does change for us as we get older. Projection is actually the reverse. Our attributes of our personality are inconsistent with our self image, and we've disowned and put onto that, disowned and put onto assigned to others. Um, You see people do that quite a lot. We're projecting on to, so we're blaming others for our problems. We're projecting on to others because of our circumstances. And that's something that we talk about a lot. And so that's pretty common issue, and also similar to one of Freud's defense mechanisms. Retroflexion. What we would like to do to someone, we turn inward. What we would like to do. So self-injurious behavior, guilt, depression. These are things that we're harming self in some way. And so that's very common, right? And it is impacting their life and their ability to live authentically. Deflect, right? We diffuse with humor. You guys do this in class. Well, I don't know if you guys have done it yet, but it's really funny to watch, especially in group. If we get a little too serious, someone will say something funny, and even I will, because maybe we got too serious, and I don't want us to get that serious right then. So it can be a good thing when we need it to be, but it can be bad if we're not doing it. If we're never going deep and we're overusing humor. Confluence is blurring the differentiation of self and the environment. You're enmeshed. You are a people pleaser. People pleasers are awesome because they do whatever you want. This is terrible. Um, but they're exhausted. And I love to reform people pleasers. I myself am a reformed people pleaser, and I love, love, love to say no now. And it's my favorite word. And I love my clients to love the word no, because when we say yes all the time, we're exhausted. And so when we're trying to please everyone and trying to do the right thing all the time because we think that's what we're supposed to do, instead of staying true to ourselves and our own boundaries, we can get really sick. And so I often tell people that your family members are not going to like your therapist very much because when we get finished, I don't think you're going to say yes quite as much because it's exhausting. So that's a blurring of those boundaries itself. Clients attempt to control their environment through these channels and it blocks authentic contact. And remember what contact is, that living authentically, living in nature, living with energy. I know so just memorize it and somehow try to come up with a way to remember that, because I know the word contact means other things as well. But think about it, you're making contact with an authentic life. So, how do we do Gestalt therapy? One of the main contributions of Gestalt is the emphasis on bringing it into the present moment. Focusing on the future, they think, is a way to avoid the present. It's the power of the present. What is happening now? And I can tell you, learning, I love this. I do a lot of the past, right? I mean, EMDR therapists, but bringing it into the right now is so powerful. Not why, but how and what. Power is in the present. But Gestalt therapists do realize the past will make an appearance in the present, which is EMDR, because there's a lack of completion. So we're going to bring it into the now. So how could unfinished business, energy blocks, and being stuck relate to this drawing from a client who has dissociative identity disorder? With awareness in Gestalt clients, they have the capacity to face, accept, and integrate denied parts, becoming integrated and whole. Next week, I will show you that drawing. So it's a little bit different, right? In the way that we're doing things this year. And so in my Gestalt activities, we will do this. So bring DID drawing. I just thought it always a good example to show you how that works in therapy. And this unfinished business in the past, they think that emerges. The figure, remember the figure from what we talked about before, emerges from the background and it's not resolved, and we're left with what they call unfinished business. So if you see unfinished business and you have a test question or you have a CPCE, you're going to know that's Gestalt, unfinished business. The business comes out in a variety of ways, such as anxiety, guilt, abandonment, hatred, and rage. Unfinished business and in the now, those are things bringing into the present. Those are things that you're going to hear about in this in Gestalt. And so you're going to start to be able to recognize which one is which. Our goals as a Gestalt therapist is to assist the client in having greater awareness, kind of getting to that contact. Includes the capacity to face, accept, and integrate those denied parts from the unfinished business. Clients are expected to assume ownership of thoughts, feelings, and behaviors in the present. And they develop the skills to get needs met without violating the rights of others, which are those boundary issues with contact we just talked about. Accepting responsibility for what they do and being able to ask for help and give help are your therapeutic goals as a Gestalt therapist. So our function and role as a Gestalt therapist are as follows. The client is active. This is an active therapy. There are lots of experiments and lots of exercises. Those are the two words I couldn't think of. Experiments and exercises, and they're different, that you do with clients. And so you're a guide and you act as a catalyst. You present experiments and you share observations, but basic work is done by the client. You don't force them. Very big on nonverbals. If your hands could speak at this moment, what would they say? If your leg could talk, what would it say? Laughing while crying. Tell me about you laughing while crying. Tell me about you smiling while you're telling me about your sexual abuse. And these are Gestalt things that I use a lot. And sometimes funny to, like I said, to come back and even think, sometimes I just think I'm asking a good therapeutic question and I can't even remember that I link it to this. I'm actually using Gestalt. Very powerful. We pay attention to language. You, it versus you statements versus I statements, the questioning client, the denying power, sort of, kind of, maybe, like words, I can't versus I won't, but you don't badger them like Fritz Perls did. Poor Gloria. That was something, wasn't it? You listen for metaphors. So just yesterday, a client said to me, and this is me, in treatment, I was so worried about having to discuss my past. Why would I want to bring those monsters up? I guess that's me. We'll see. I guess that means, I mean, I did do these slides. You can tell they're different than the books. You can tell the ones that I do myself, the ones that come from the book. Could be used in any foundations book. So you guys have the canned slides with me on that one, pretty much. Let's see. What would you say? Listening for language that uncovers a story. I hear metaphors a lot. You have to catch them. You always catch them. Sometimes you're just in the moment and it goes over your head. But what are they telling you when they use that language? And there are three stages of integration for the client experience. The integration is the client experience, like three stages of treatment, basically. I know that the wording in this can be a little bit much sometimes. Discovery, they're discovering self. Accommodation, they're recognizing they have a choice and they're starting to experiment out of the office, which is always good. And then they start to assimilate the new behavior, the new me. Kind of if you think about the stages of change, like this is very similar, right? But much earlier in that work, in Clechte's stages of change model. The relationship, we are the instrument. When you feel it, trust it, you're an instrument. If we're not attuned to our own qualities of compassion, authenticity, irritability, and toughness, we can become technicians rather than clinicians. Respect and acceptance and presence is a large part of now contemporary gestalt therapy. We wouldn't be quite as rough as Fritz. When we get into class, we will, and so I hope this is working for everyone. Hopefully, the way that this is working is you listen to these and read. And we have lots of time to do that. And then when we come together, you have another whole week. When we come together next Thursday, we'll do a lot of these things and we'll talk about it. And hopefully that will just really hammer in the knowledge. We're going to do this activity when we get in class together. We're going to talk about exercises and experiments, and then we're going to do some for funsies. Do active. I'm making notes so I don't forget what I'm supposed to do in a week because that's kind of tough sometimes. But these are all the cool exercises. And I put interventions there just so you guys would not get confused. Remember, I keep telling you exercise, intervention. The only thing is this: experiment and exercise in Gestalt is different. Those are two different things. Read it, know it, understand it. Because if you don't, you're going to get caught up on something incorrect. I talk about that? I must talk. Oh, okay. I have it covered when we do this. That's why it's not in here. So we'll make sure that we understand that exercises are ready-made techniques that are sometimes used to make something happen in the therapy session or achieve a goal. They're catalysts for individual work or for promoting interaction among members of a therapy group. An experiment, in contrast, grows out of the interaction between the client and the therapist and may emerge within the dialogue. That can be considered cornerstone of experiential learning. It's a shift in the focus of counseling from talking about a topic to an activity that will heighten client awareness and understanding through experience. Experiments have been confused with technique, but a technique is performed experiment with specific learning goals. Okay, so you've got to know that. That is very, very, very important for you to understand that concept. So basically, these are planned exercises. Okay, these are planned exercises. There's empty chair. We all know about that one, right? Empty chair. So these are planned. So we're actually, these are planned right here. Exercise. An experiment is more like, okay, we are in the moment, and they're talking about their family, and I say, you know what? Why don't you stand up and sculpt your family things in my office real quick. Any object. What object represents your mother? Where would you put that in relation to you? So something in the moment that just, or draw me a, like, you know what? Draw that for me. Draw me your family. So what is it that you're doing that you're experimenting to help the client grow? The art of what we do. Gestalt is awesome for grief. It's awesome. Psychodrama is used in gestalt therapy. You can see how these activity experiments and really exercises would be awesome. There are strengths and limitations from a diversity perspective, many opportunities to use with a variety of cultures, but the experiments being used too quickly that can have a strong emotional response can be damaging, like case study on 221 with the client from India. So strong cultural injunctions prohibiting them from just expressing emotion to their parents. So a client from India who was asked by his counselor to bring the father into the room, the client was very reluctant to even symbolically tell his father of his disappointment with this relationship. In his culture, the accepted way to deal with his father was to use his uncle as a go-between, and it was considered highly inappropriate to bring father in and express any negative emotion to father. The client later said he would have felt very guilty if he had symbolically told his father what he sometimes thought and felt. So this is where we have to be really sensitive. That's in the text and under shortcomings from diversity. You have to be highly competent and have engaged in your own therapy because you will get triggered when you do these activities if you haven't. When you guys I talk to you about being able to just be okay if someone yells at me. I was late the other day for a client and I knew it's funny, so I wasn't really late. I was like 3 minutes late for the session. Um, and I knew and it's a doctor, and I knew it bothered. He doesn't like being late, and I said, "How did you feel about that?" So he used it. I'm like, "Are you upset with me? And do you need to talk to me about it?" So it's if I wasn't, if I had not done that in therapy, I might not be able to handle that answer because he might be like, "Yeah, it pissed me off. You shouldn't be late." Well, right? Like 10 years ago, I might have been like, "Well, you don't have to see me." I might have. All right, now always read Stan and Gwen. Always read Stan and Gwen, Stan and Gwen, because that's going to help you. You guys did a fantastic job on what I've looked at for Adlery and existential. It is really helping you delve into it, and I'm very impressed. And we did it. I love the song. See y'all soon. Bye.